The search for meaning, a search that can save us or destroy us. And the search for meaning can sometimes be seen as chasing after smoke, but sometimes it is the only thing that keeps us moving forward. Oftentimes, within the midst of suffering, one finds the most valuable of meanings. In Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, he tells us about life in the concentration camp and how those who lost faith in the future and his inner self were doomed to the cruelties of camp, but those who had a fundamental attitude towards their inner selves and a hope towards the future endured to the end. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist and concentration camp survivor. In Man's Search for Meaning, he speaks on his experience in a concentration camp and gives us a psychological, philosophical view on what allows human beings to endure suffering. Life in the camp. Victor's experience in a concentration camp can be seen as a psychiatrist observing the life of the prisoners, how meaning is operated under the cruelty of the camp. Frankl begins with being arrested and taken to the camp, the loss of freedom. This loss of freedom was followed by the first psychological state that Viktor Frankl observed in prisoners, which was shock. In this state, prisoners cling to delusions of their pride, hoping for the better, telling themselves it won't be as bad. In the midst of despair, the human mind tends to protect itself by denial. The condemned man, the last minute, gets the illusion he will be reprieved. Illusion was a defense mechanism, denial masked in hope. This illusion only helped temporarily until the reality of the camp kicked in, which induced apathy. Upon arrival to the concentration camp, many of the prisoners underwent a loss of identity and a loss of freedom. The prisoners undergo dehumanization. Names were replaced with numbers, belongings were confiscated, uniform was given to them, hair was shaved, all sense of individuality in the prisoners was stripped away, reducing the humans who prior to coming to camp had a sense of individuality to numbers. Identity was shattered, and the self became fragile. But here Viktor Frankl states that even when everything is taken away, one thing remains, and that is inner freedom. To be robbed of your inner freedom would be to allowing permission for it to be taken. The loss of identity soon succumbed the prisoners into a state of apathy, emotional numbness. Apathy. Prisoners had to witness beatings and executions daily. They were starved, exhausted, and humiliated, and they were nothing but mere numbers. The prisoners were so exhausted that any form of apathy or emotion could take a toll on the prisoner, so suppressing empathy to survive was a response, not cruelty. Emotional numbing to survive was like psychological armor. Here, many prisoners experienced a loss of meaning. Prisoners who lost a reason to live died first. The crucial part for survival was inner life. Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Meaning. The prisoner's character was in such mental torment that all values were lost. A man had to struggle in not letting his last efforts to maintain a sense of self be lost. Loss of the ego, the loss of individuality, and the mind resulted in becoming one with the mass of people. His existence descended back to an animal life. Meaning became the light in the darkness, the why to live. Meaning differed for all prisoners. For some it was unfinished tasks that needed to be worked on after leaving camp, or values like love, beauty, nature, or relationships, or just the attitude that one takes towards the unavoidable. For Victor, he imagined reuniting with the lost manuscript after leaving the camp. Love was also an important asset in providing those who were on the brink of losing their life a reason to live. The intensification of inner life helped the prisoner find a refuge from emptiness, desolation, and spiritual poverty of his existence, and by letting him escape into the past. Love. Love is the ultimate and the highest goal man can aspire to. Love transcends physical presence. Frankl survived by imagining his wife. Love becomes freedom in a sense. By his love, he is enabled to see the essential traits and features in the beloved person, and even more, he sees that which is potential in him, which is not yet actualized, but yet ought to be actualized. Furthermore, by his love, the loving person enables the beloved person to actualize these potentialities. Suffering. The prisoner who lost faith in the future and his inner self was doomed. Only men who allowed their inner hold on their moral and spiritual selves to subside eventually fell victim to the camp. Here lies the chance for a man either to make use of or to forgo the opportunities of attaining the moral values that a difficult situation may afford him, and this decides whether he is worthy of his sufferings or not. A fundamental change in attitude towards life was needed. It did not matter what we expected from life, but what life expected from us. Spinoza once said, "Emotion which is suffering ceases to be suffering as soon as we form a clear and precise picture of it." In despair, humans retain their freedom to choose their attitude, or what then matters is to bear witness to the uniquely human potential at best, which is to transform a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. We are challenged to change ourselves. Suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of sacrifice. In no way is suffering necessary to find meaning. If suffering were avoidable, the meaningful thing to do is to remove its cause. To suffer unnecessarily is masochistic rather than heroic. Suffering can either become a meaningless torment that results in despair or irresponsibility, where endurance becomes possible. When presented with unavoidable suffering, which is often the case, it becomes an existential task, either collapse inward or stand with courage in the face of suffering. Meaning can transform suffering, and suffering, when born courageously, transcends circumstance. Frankl later calls this tragic optimism, which is saying yes to life despite the suffering. Instead of asking yourself, why is this happening to me, Frankl suggests to ask, what does this demand of me? Meaning is possible under all conditions. The transition lines of our existence in no way make it meaningless, but it does constitute our responsibility for everything. It hinges upon our realizing the essential transitory possibilities. When presented with pain, guilt, or death, we must decide whether these tragic realities will destroy us or transform us. What will be the monument of our existence? Our mortality creates urgency. If life were infinite, no action would matter, but because life has an end, each moment carries weight. Meaning. Logos in the Greek means meaning or reason. Logotherapy is an existential meaning-centered psychotherapy developed by Viktor Frankl. The logotherapist's role consists of widening and broadening the visual field onto the patient so that the whole spectrum of potential meaning becomes conscious and available. The primary human motivation is meaning, the will to meaning. According to Viktor Frankl, meaning is unique and it must be fulfilled by him alone. When one achieves this, it will satisfy his own will to meaning. When the motivation is frustrated, people experience emptiness, apathy, depression, and addiction. Humans tend to suffer the most when life is meaningless. This state can be called the existential vacuum. Modern neurosis stems from the existential vacuum and emptiness. When distractions fall away and you are left alone with your thoughts, people tend to feel empty. This is called Sunday neurosis, according to Viktor Frankl. A human problem of meaning that people no longer know what they must do, should do, or want to do. New dynamics is a man's search, and this man's search for meaning may cause inner tension. Such tension is a prerequisite of mental health. Mental health is based on a certain degree of tension, the tension between what one has already achieved and what one still ought to accomplish, or the gap between what one is and what one should become. Therapists should not be hesitant about challenging the person with the potential meaning for them to fulfill. The existential dynamics in the polar field of tension, where one pole is represented by a meaning that is to be fulfilled, and the other pole by the man who has to fulfill it. If architects want to strengthen a decrepit arch, they increase the load which is laid upon it. So if therapists wish to foster their patient's mental health, they should not be afraid to create a sound amount of tension through a reconsideration toward the meaning of life. Man does not need attention to state, but rather is striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. The call of potential meaning, waiting to be fulfilled by him. Finding meaning. What matters, therefore, is not the meaning of life in general, but rather the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize it is he who is asked. Each man is questioned by his life, and he can only answer the life by answering for his own life. The true meaning of life is to be discovered in the world, rather than within man or his own psyche. As though it were a closed system. This is called the self-transcendence of human existence. It denotes the fact that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is and the more he actualizes himself. What is called self-actualization is not an attainable aim at all. For the reasons that the more one would strive for it, the more he would miss it. Self-actualization is possible only as a side effect of self-transcendence. You can discover meaning in 3 different ways: creating work or doing the deed, experiencing something or encountering someone, or changing the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. Man does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be. The feeling of meaninglessness results from frustration of our existential needs. To find meaning, one should change the attitude towards oneself and the world, to be tragically optimistic, as Viktor E Frankl puts it, to say yes to life despite the circumstance. In doing so, you will be able to transcend circumstance. Meaning can be found in anything, in the midst of suffering, love, task, career, or even a moment. Meaning is up to the individual to bring forth into existence. You have to decide, whether for the best or the worst. It is all up to you on what attitude and action you take.